I'm sitting here in my old oak chair, the one I carved with my own hands back when the world felt solid under my feet. The grain of the wood feels like a map of my life, knots and grooves worn smooth by time, each one a story, each one a scar. At 67, you learn to carry your scars quietly, but some wounds never quite heal. They fester, waiting for the day you decide to face them. That day came for me 3 years ago, when I learned the truth about the woman I loved for nearly 4 decades. My name is Samuel Whitaker, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I knew, and how I took it all back. It started on a Tuesday evening, the kind of quiet autumn night in Willow Creek where the air smells of damp leaves and wood smoke. I'd just finished a long day at the lumberyard I'd built from nothing, Whitaker Timber, a business that started with a single chainsaw and a dream in 1978. I was driving home, my old Ford pickup rattling along the county road, when I decided to swing by my daughter Clara's house. She'd been distant lately, and I thought a surprise visit might lift her spirits. But when I pulled into her driveway, I saw Evelyn's car, a sleek black Cadillac I'd bought her for our 35th anniversary, parked where it shouldn't have been. My chest tightened, not with suspicion yet, but with a vague unease, like the first crack in a dam before the flood comes rushing through. I parked a little down the road, out of sight, and walked back. The house was lit up, warm light spilling through the living room window. I could hear voices, Evelyn's, sharp and calculating, and another, smoother, like polished steel. It was Nathan, Clara's husband, a corporate lawyer with a smile that never reached his eyes. I crept closer, my boots silent on the grass, and pressed myself against the wall beside the window. What I heard next wasn't just a conversation, it was the sound of my life unraveling. "We've got him right where we want him," Evelyn said, her voice low, conspiratorial. "Samuel's so wrapped up in that lumberyard, he doesn't even notice the accounts I've been siphoning. By the time he figures it out, we'll have enough to start over anywhere." Nathan laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "The old man's too trusting. I've got the legal framework ready. We file for divorce next spring, claim emotional neglect. With your sacrifices, as a devoted wife, you'll walk away with half his assets, plus alimony for life. The yard's worth at least $15 million, not counting the real estate holdings." My knees buckled. I grabbed the windowsill to steady myself, my heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. Evelyn, my Evelyn, the woman I'd built a life with, the woman who'd kissed me goodnight every evening for 38 years, was plotting to strip me bare. And Nathan, the man I'd welcomed as a son, was her partner in this betrayal. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking, and hit record. Their words poured out like poison, each one burning deeper into my soul. "He thinks I'm still the girl he married," Evelyn said, her tone mocking. "All those years playing the dutiful wife, smiling at his boring stories about timber grades and mill contracts. God, it's been exhausting." "Worth it, though," Nathan replied. "We've got copies of his financials, deeds, everything. He's got no idea we've been planning this for 2 years. 2 years. 2 years of lies, of her hand in mine, of her voice saying, 'I love you, Sam,' while she and Nathan mapped out my ruin." I stood there, frozen, as they detailed their plan, divorce filings, asset division, even how they'd use Clara's psychology practice to paint me as an emotionally distant father. My daughter, my only child, was just another pawn in the game. A branch snapped under my foot, and the voices inside stopped. "What was that?" Evelyn hissed. "Probably nothing," Nathan said, but his tone was wary. "You're jumping at shadows. If Samuel finds out before we're ready," Evelyn started. "He won't," Nathan cut her off. "The man's too busy playing lumber baron to notice his world's falling apart." I backed away, my phone still recording, and slipped into the darkness. By the time I reached my truck, my hands were steady, but something inside me had shifted. The grief was there, raw and heavy, but beneath it was something colder, sharper, a resolve I hadn't felt since I was a young man fighting to build my business against competitors who thought they could outmaneuver me. They thought they were playing a game of chess. They didn't know I'd been playing for survival my whole life. The drive home was a blur. Our house, a sprawling log cabin I'd built with my own hands in '85, stood at the edge of Willow Creek, surrounded by pines I'd planted when Clara was born. Every board, every beam, was a testament to the life I'd created for Evelyn, for Clara, for us. Now, it felt like a museum of lies. I walked inside, the silence heavy, and stood in the living room, staring at the framed photos on the mantel. Evelyn and me on our wedding day, her in a simple lace dress, me in a suit I'd borrowed from my brother. Clara's first birthday, Evelyn laughing as our daughter smeared cake on her face. Our 20th anniversary, when we'd renewed our vows under the stars. Each memory was a knife, twisting deeper with every lie I now knew. I sank into my chair, the one I'm sitting in now, and let the memories flood me. I'd met Evelyn in 1977 at a county fair. She was 20, a waitress with dreams of seeing the world, and I was 29, a logger with calloused hands and a head full of ambition. Her laugh had caught me first, bright and free, like a river breaking through stone. We danced under string lights to a cover band playing Johnny Cash, and when I asked her to marry me 6 months later, she'd said yes before I'd even finished the question. "You're gonna build something big, Sam Whitaker," she'd whispered, "and I want to be there when you do." For 38 years, I thought she'd meant it. I built Whitaker Timber from a one-man operation into a company that employed half the town. I gave her everything, a big house, vacations to Paris and Rome, a life where she never had to worry about money. But somewhere along the way, her love turned to greed, her gratitude to entitlement. When had it started? I wondered. Was it when we landed the contract for the State Park Visitor Center in 2015, worth $10 million? Or earlier, when Clara went to college, and Evelyn started filling her days with country club luncheons and designer handbags? I'd been too busy working to notice the shift, too trusting to see the cracks. The recording on my phone was 42 minutes long. I listened to it again, every word a fresh wound. "Samuel's too proud to suspect anything," Evelyn had said. "He thinks he's untouchable." Nathan's reply, "That's what makes this so easy." Easy. That word stuck with me, a splinter in my mind. They thought betraying me was easy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning, I called Amos Reed, my accountant and oldest friend. Amos had been with me since the early days, when we'd scrounged for enough cash to buy our first sawmill. "Sam, what's wrong?" he asked, hearing the edge in my voice. "I need you to look into something," I said, quietly. "Offshore accounts, asset protection, the works. I think Evelyn's planning something." Amos didn't ask questions. He knew me well enough to trust my instincts. By noon, he'd confirmed what I'd suspected. Evelyn had been moving money, small amounts at first, then larger sums, into a separate account I hadn't known about. The account was linked to Nathan's name, buried under layers of legal paperwork. Over 2 years, they'd siphoned off $62,000, not enough to raise red flags but enough to fund their new life once they'd bled me dry. I spent the next 3 days in my home office, a room lined with shelves of old ledgers and photos of lumberyard projects. 2 laptops glowed on my desk, displaying bank records, property titles, and emails I'd never thought to check. I found evidence of Evelyn's book club meetings that coincided with hotel charges in Nathan's name. Lunches at the Willow Creek Country Club, paid for with my credit card, while she claimed to be volunteering at the library. Every discovery was a brick in the wall I was building, a wall to protect what was mine. By Friday, I'd met with Clara's godfather, Tom Harlan, president of Willow Creek Bank. Tom and I had played poker every Thursday for 20 years, and he knew my business inside out. "I need to lock down all joint accounts," I told him over coffee in his office. "Security review, effective immediately." Tom's eyebrows rose, but he didn't pry. "This'll hit Evelyn hard, Sam. She won't be able to access a dime without your approval." "That's the idea," I said, my voice steady. By 2 p.m., the holds were in place. Evelyn's first declined transaction came at 2:17 p.m., a $200 lunch at the country club. Her call came 20 minutes later, her voice tight with panic. "Sam, what's going on? My card was declined in front of everyone. They said there's a security hold on our accounts. Must be a mix-up," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I'll look into it," but I didn't. Instead, I drove to the lumberyard, where the hum of saws and the smell of fresh cut pine grounded me. My crew, men and women I'd worked alongside for decades, greeted me with nods and smiles. They didn't know about the war one was fighting, but their loyalty reminded me what I was protecting. Not just money, but a legacy. Evelyn's panic grew over the weekend. Her texts piled up, each one more desperate. "Sam, I can't even buy groceries. What's happening? The bank says I need your signature for everything. This is humiliating." I replied with vague assurances, buying time while I gathered more evidence. Mike Callahan, a private investigator I'd hired through a lumberyard contact, sent me updates on Nathan's movements. The lawyer was scrambling, trying to access the joint account he shared with Evelyn, only to find it frozen. He'd made 3 calls to the bank, each one angrier than the last, threatening legal action that would never come. On Sunday, Clara called. Her voice was careful, like she was stepping around broken glass. "Dad, is everything okay with you and Mom? She's acting strange, saying you're controlling her money." I took a deep breath, weighing my words. Clara was my daughter, but she was also Nathan's wife. "Your mom's upset about some bank issues," I said. "I'm handling it. But Clara, if she asks you to do anything unusual, come to me first, okay?" She hesitated, then said, "Okay, Dad. I trust you." That trust was a lifeline, but I knew it would be tested. Evelyn and Nathan were planning to use Clara's psychology credentials to bolster their case, framing me as a neglectful husband and father. I couldn't let them drag her into their lies. Monday morning, I sat in my office, reviewing the final pieces of my plan. Amos had set up a trust to shield Whitaker Timber's core assets, completely legal, completely untouchable. The offshore accounts, established years ago for tax purposes, held the bulk of my wealth, invisible to Evelyn's amateur sleuthing. Meanwhile, Mike's investigation uncovered Nathan's dirty secret: he was drowning in debt. $210,000 in student loans, a leased office he couldn't afford, and a string of unpaid subcontractors who'd worked on his firm's renovation projects. The local contractors association was buzzing with complaints about Nathan's creative accounting, and 2 ethics complaints had been filed with the state bar. I made a call to Ed Grayson, a contractor who'd been stiffed $12,000 by Nathan. "Ed, I'm looking into hiring Thompson for some legal work," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "What's your experience with him?" Ed didn't hold back. "Guy's a snake, Sam. Promised payment for months, then ghosted me. Heard he's done the same to half a dozen others. Steer clear." By noon, I'd spoken to 3 more contractors, each with a similar story. I filed a formal complaint with the state bar, detailing Nathan's pattern of misusing client funds. The dominoes were starting to fall. That evening, Evelyn came home, her face a mask of controlled fury. "Samuel, this has gone far enough," she said, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. "You're humiliating me. Everyone at the club is talking. I'm protecting our assets," I said, meeting her gaze. "There's been some suspicious activity on our accounts. I'm sure you understand." Her eyes flickered with fear, but she recovered quickly. "Suspicious? You're the one acting paranoid. What's next? Locking me out of the house?" I didn't answer, just watched her squirm. She didn't know about the recording, didn't know I'd heard every word of her betrayal. But she sensed the ground shifting beneath her. The next day, Clara came to the lumberyard. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. "Dad, I need to know what's going on. Mom's saying you're trying to ruin her, but Nathan's been asking me weird questions about your business. I think they're hiding something." I took a deep breath and played the recording. Clara listened in silence, her hands clenched in her lap. When Evelyn's voice said, "Samuel thinks he's untouchable," Clara flinched like she'd been slapped. By the time Nathan outlined their plan to use her credentials, her eyes were blazing. "They wanted to use me," she whispered. My own mother, my husband. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I said, my voice breaking. I didn't want you to hear this, but you deserve the truth. Clara stood, her jaw set. I'm done with them, Dad. Both of them. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in collapse. Evelyn's social circle at the country club turned on her, whispers of her betrayal spreading faster than wildfire. The charity board she chaired for years restructured, leaving her out. Nathan's law firm lost 2 major clients after word of his ethics investigation leaked. By the time the state bar suspended his license, he was begging for paralegal jobs in another state. Clara filed for divorce, her psychology practice thriving as she focused on helping families navigate betrayal. Evelyn moved to a small apartment, working as a receptionist at a car dealership. The irony of her selling the kind of luxury cars she once demanded wasn't lost on me. I rebuilt Whitaker Timber stronger than ever, my crew's loyalty unshaken. The house is quieter now, but it's mine, every beam, every memory. I've learned the difference between love and manipulation, between trust and blindness. At 67, I know the weight of truth, and I carry it with pride. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more tales of heartbreak and redemption. The truth always finds a way.